Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name's Justin, avid Cowboy fan, and this is kind of the first of my Cowboys vlogs. I haven't really come up with a name for it yet. I'll figure it out at some point, so for right now, I'm just going to go with a Cowboys vlog. Something I've been wanting to do for a while, just never really got around to it, and kind of always found other things taking up my time. So basically, kind of the idea, I'm just going to kind of talk about the team, just kind of recent things going on, maybe upcoming deals. As far as the off season goes, since that's where we are right now, kind of just go over different headlines, maybe different storylines, and kind of give my opinions. And that's just kind of what this is. It's my opinion on what's going on with the team, what I'd like to see them do. I won't go into too much conjecture and into different hypotheticals. About, for example, hey, why don't we trade player XY, and try and get the best player on some other team. Something that's totally illogical. I won't be going into any of that. Just kind of my general opinions, kind of like we do on the Cowboy forums. Speaking of which, if you want to catch me on the Cowboy forums, more than likely you'll find me with the username DCowboy84. And I'll put that in the comments, or in the little information section down below there. Hopefully, depending on what kind of reaction I get on this, what I'd like to eventually do, maybe be able to do some Google Hangouts with some fellow forum members, other Cowboy fans, where we can just kind of go over different topics and talk about them. Whether it's, who we'd like to see them draft, what do we think has been going on in free agency, maybe a draft follow-up show, that kind of thing. And as we progress through the off-season and the season, kind of see where it goes from there. But like I say, hopefully I get good reaction from this. And we can kind of go see kind of what happens. A little background on me, not to go too far deep. I pretty much grew up with the triplets era. So I was 6 years old when we drafted Emmitt Smith, and then kind of went on from there. So I've been through some of the highs and lows, obviously, with our team. Obviously, the highs of the triplets in the 90s and the dynasty, and then the lows pretty much ever since then. Just to get it out of the way, since I'm sure people obviously want to know the general opinions. I like Jerry Jones as an owner. Don't care much for what he's been doing as a GM. I am pretty much non-committal on the head coach right now. I really was hoping for more, but we'll kind of see where it goes. I won't get into my allegiances with all the players. Basically, if you wear a star, I'm going to root for you. I might get pissed at you during the games, but I'll still root for you. And with that, I'll just kind of go into kind of a few of the topics for this week. Obviously, is we're getting into free agency this week. So as of the point of where I'm filming this video, nothing's happened with DeMarcus Ware yet. That could change depending on when you're watching this. But for right now, he's still a Cowboy, and from all the reports I've seen, they're just kind of talking with him and talking with his agent. Obviously, being on the forums, as I'm sure other Cowboy fans have been, there's a lot of different opinions going out there. Should we keep him? Should we let him go? The bottom line is he's going to make less money wherever he is, whether he stays with us or whether he goes to another team. Personally, and I'm going to be ultra homer here, I'd love for him to stay with the Cowboys. I don't think it's fair to base off of really one bad year and just dump him. Now, with that being said, I don't like that $16 million cap figure, which is, I believe, what it is for this year as it stands right now. I think that's too much. But I think what we have to understand is that's kind of where the team put him with all the restructures that he's let them do for the last few years. And, that's kind of the cat and mouse game you play with the whole restructuring and dealing with the salary cap, and that's kind of where you end up when you keep pushing money back and back and back. You eventually get to a year where you've got a huge cap hit. And I'm sure everyone else has read some of the reports when we've restructured Tony Romo's contract recently, that in a few years he's going to have a massive cap hit. And then we have to kind of figure out what we're going to do with him at that point. But back to where I think we should keep him. I think he's too valuable, and he's basically been the best player on our team, since we drafted the guy. And I think what we saw from him in training camp this last year and right before he got hurt, you can't just give up on that right now. I know you're going to say he's got an injury history, and that's true. But this last year is the very first time he's ever actually missed games, and that was mainly because of that leg injury, which he hasn't had before. The stingers do worry me, but people still have to account for him when he's out there. And I think one of the other big factors is, what do we do if he's gone? Who's there to replace him? Right now, all we have is Selvey, and we got some other guys off the street. Nobody knows what Spencer's going to do, even if we're going to have him. And that's something I'll get to in a minute. And we can always draft a guy, and I think we're going to draft a D-end at some point. But we don't know what kind of production he's going to do. And we've never really seen that other guy, whether it's Spencer or Selvey, see really what they do without him, without Ware on the other side. We saw Ware out for a few games. Selvey had some good stats this year. I'd have to go back and see exactly how well he fared in those games when Ware wasn't there. Because in Spencer the year before, who had his career year, Ware was still on the other side. And you might be saying this sounds ultra homer of me, but I just think with what he's done, it's not fair to get rid of him at this point. We've seen other guys in the past who have had some injury histories and some bad years and constantly hurt, but we've let them hang around for 3, 4, 5 years, then we let them go. And for 1 year, when Ware finally misses a game with injury, to just dump him because of salary cap, I just don't think is a good idea. I think you try and work something out to keep him. I think he's too valuable, both on the field and off the field. And even Jerry Jones, I think, said a couple weeks ago at the Combine that he epitomizes what the Cowboys are. And I just don't think you give up on that. But, we'll see what happens. I'll obviously wish him the best if he is let go. But it'll kill me to see him in another uniform because he's one of my favorite players. But moving on from Ware, other than that, in free agency, I'm not going to go through the whole list of guys we've got as free agents, but the two other big names are also on the D-line, being Hatcher and Spencer. Hatcher obviously had a career year this last year. Spencer's coming off microfracture surgery, and we're kind of thinking we might be able to get him cheap, though different reports, I've seen tweets from some of the Dallas Morning News guys saying that there's several teams interested in both of those guys, so we'll have to kind of see what happens there. With Spencer, microfracture surgery is a tricky thing. You've seen that happen with basketball guys. Some of them play for a while, some of them are done. I grew up in Colorado, and this is going on basketball, but Kenyon Martin was part of the Nuggets, and he had microfracture surgery on both knees multiple times, and he was still playing for a long time. So it's possible, but I've never seen what happens with microfracture surgery on a defensive lineman, so that's kind of another whole different animal there. I think if you can get him on the cheap, I'd definitely bring him back. You may as well see what you got there if you can get him for a cheap enough price. Obviously, it all depends on the salary cap, and as of today, I think we're like $1.5 million under with because Chris Jones, the punter, signed his exclusive rights tag. To Hatcher, that's a tough one also because he had a career year under Marinelli. You can assume that's going to happen again, but he's on the other side of 30 years old. You don't know if he's going to start declining from here on out or if he can still put another couple of years of that production together. Then obviously one of the other names out there that's not on the Cowboys but is a D tackle and has been with Marinelli is Henry Melton. That's a popular name. I like the guy. But he's coming off an injury himself. He's had some legal troubles and kind of have to see what goes on there. The positive for him, he's a younger guy. Probably not going to be worth as much as he would have if he hadn't been hurt, but kind of see what happens with that. I won't get, like I said at the beginning, I won't get too much conjecture of who we should, who we shouldn't, because the salary cap, unfortunately, is just a bear on us right now. So until we figure out what we're going to do with restructures or cuts or whatever, right now, we can't really sign anybody except for some low-level guys like we filled our roster with last year. So we'll have to see what happens. I think writing's on the wall with Miles Austin. Another one of the guys I really grew a liking towards as a player, but unfortunately injuries have just done him in. It's unfortunate for that guy, but probably we're not going to see him around. They're probably going to designate him a June 1st cut from everything I've seen. which will save us some money, but it won't save the money until June 1st if they do it that way. So that'd pretty much be draft picks and that kind of thing. So we'll kind of see what happens. The next video I do, I'm going to try and do this as a weekly thing if I can, and I'll probably have something that's happened in free agency since then. So we'll see where we are at that point. In terms of free agency in general, that's pretty much all my thoughts, because nothing obviously has happened yet, because free agency's not going on until this is Monday night as I'm recording this, so tomorrow is when free agency starts. I'm really going to try and keep these videos more Cowboys related. I might throw in some moves that the other teams in the division have done, since that affects us, obviously. Maybe some big breaking news things, like if you see some guy who's been cut or some guy that's been traded or a big signing that nobody saw happen, I might make mention of that and kind of give my opinion. But I'll try and keep this at least within the division. Specifically, I'll mainly focus on what it does for us. That's really all I got on free agency. And the only other thing I'm going to do is, because it's in the off season and we got the draft coming up in about a month and a half, couple of months, kind of do a little bit of draft preview, the best that I can. I'm not a scout by any means. I have taken a scouting course. I won't mention the school in case I'm not supposed to on the video, but so I do have a little bit of an idea of what to look for. Kind of, I'm able to see a little things on video, and obviously I'm just looking at YouTube clips because I don't have access to the tape. But I think what I'll kind of do, especially as we lead up to the draft, is maybe kind of look at a few positions, maybe go through at least the top guys in that position, see whether or not the Cowboys might have any interest in those guys. As I'm doing that, I'd love any feedback from y'all. Guys you'd want to look at, guys you want me to specifically to mention, maybe some under the radar guys that you know of. And then, like I say, hopefully I can get, maybe if this goes along well, get some guys on the forums, get other Cowboys fans, maybe do a Google Hangout or something where we can maybe discuss some of these guys and see what we see there. But one of the things I'm also going to do each week is, any of you guys who have been on the Cowboys website and listened to their draft show, they've mentioned the FanSpeak mock draft simulator deal. So I kind of played around with that for the first time this week. It's kind of an interesting little thing. A lot of somewhat unrealistic deals that I've seen, just based on where some guys are still falling and still available, which I don't think is going to happen. Saw a couple that I ran where Greg Robinson, the tackle out of Auburn, was still there at 16, and there's no way, unless he gets convicted of a crime or ends up breaking his leg or something, that I see him being there. But it does kind of give you an idea of kind of picking and choosing when guys are available, unlike regular mock drafts where you're kind of just picking and whatever, and then you just kind of see who's there. This one, kind of the computer simulates all the picks before you, and then you kind of see the list of who's there. The website kind of gives a ranking, kind of tries to keep an up-to-date ranking of the players' rankings overall, and then it keeps a tally, I guess, of the team needs. And that's kind of how the computer simulates who the other teams draft. And then you get to pick who's there when the Cowboys draft, or whichever team you decide you want to do. And you can pick how many rounds you want to do. So for this week, I decided, obviously I'm going to do the Cowboys every week. So this week I decided to do 4 rounds. And again, I haven't scouted most of these players. I only know as much as I know just from listening to the draft show or watching NFL Network or seeing a lot of that kind of stuff. And I've only really watched games of a handful of these guys, so I'm kind of going more by what I think the Cowboys need and who seems to be highly rated. Maybe guys that I have seen play. And I just did 4 rounds this time. So I'll kind of give you an idea. I won't go through who all was picked before me or in those spots. That would take way too long. I'll just kind of go with some of the big names that were available when the Cowboys came up, and then who I ended up picking, and I'll try and maybe explain a little bit why. So the first round, when that came up, had a few guys that were big names on the board, from positions that we feel like we might need, or just some guys that might be hard to pass up. C.J. Mosley from Alabama was there. Mike Evans, the receiver out of A&M. Taylor Lewan and Zach Martin, the tackles respectively out of Michigan and Notre Dame. And then the 2 safeties, Clinton Dix from Alabama and Calvin Pryor from Louisville. And then Aaron Donald, the defensive tackle from Pitt. I'm sure we all know defense sucked last year. And we all seem to be kind of thinking defensive tackle is the way something that we need to improve on, especially because we don't know what's going to happen with Hatcher. I went with Aaron Donald with this pick. Probably the most controversial guys that I passed on would have been C.J. Mosley and Taylor Lewan, even Mike Evans, because they were where they were rated. Mosley, I'm a little worried with his injury history, and I'm not ready to just push Sean Lee out the door, even though he's had injury history. Mike Evans, that would give us a lethal combination with him and Terrence Williams and Des Bryant. But with some of these other guys there and being that closely rated, I'm not sure I want to pull the trigger on a wideout. Lewan, he's a highly rated tackle. I personally don't really trust him. I don't think I don't know. I don't see it. Probably the hardest guys that I had to pick between with Donald was Zach Martin and then Calvin Pryor. I think Calvin Pryor could be a very good safety, and I think Zach Martin could come in and, compete at guard and then maybe move in outside to tackle. But in the end, I felt Donald was a perfect 3 technique. He's got good quickness. I watched him at the Senior Bowl, and I saw his stuff at the Combine, and I couldn't pass him up. Got to round 2. Some of the guys there that are bigger names, Bradley Roby, the corner out of Ohio State, Devontae Adams, the wide receiver out of Fresno State, Will Sutton, defensive tackle from Arizona State, and Dominique Easley, defensive tackle out of Florida, and then Xavier Suafilo, the guard out of UCLA. It's tempting to go D-tackle again to really boost that line with somebody like Sutton or Easley. Easley does have the injury concerns. Sutton, I live in Arizona, so I've seen Will Sutton play. He was not as good this year, but I've watched him in years past, the year before, because I mainly watch USC. I watch the Trojans, so I watched him play ASU, and Will Sutton is a terror when he's really going. And I know he's dropped the weight, so he could be a good value there. Devontae Adams, I've seen some film on that guy. Really productive wide receiver, and this would be a very tempting spot to pick a wide receiver to kind of get that third guy. Roby, I'm not sure I'd pick a corner at this point, but he was a big name who happened to be there. I ended up going with Suafilo, the guard out of UCLA. Just kind of a big-bodied guy, highly rated guard, and kind of just add more beef to our offensive line. We improved it a lot this last year. We don't know how long Bernardo's going to be around. We just restructured his deal a little bit, and he took a pay cut, and he's kind of our backup center right now because we let Costa go. And I really like Ronald Leary. We're not really sure what his knee's going to do. So to have a guy like Suafilo come in, compete for one of those jobs, at least be the solid swing guard, and if Leary's knee doesn't hold out or if we end up letting Bernardo go, then we got somebody to fill in. So that's kind of what my thoughts were there. Third round, we got some more big names, or at least, I don't know about big names, but well-known names that are there. Shane Scove, linebacker out of Stanford, Cyril Richardson, the guard from Baylor, Jimmy Garoppolo, fellow Eastern Illinois quarterback, and then Jarvis Landry, wide receiver out of LSU. I ended up going with a guy that I really don't know a whole lot about, but I've heard him talked about on the draft show a couple of times. DeMarcus Lawrence, defensive end, Boise State. We don't know, obviously, still what's going to happen with Ware. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with Spencer. We know we've got George Selvey, and then we've got a lot of other guys who are just kind of guys right now. We don't know what they're going to be. So at some point in this draft, I think we need a defensive end. I've heard good things about Lawrence, and this one I kind of went with more the rated of the player and kind of a position I felt like we needed. So I went with the defensive end. It's tempting for me to go with Garoppolo, just because my feeling on the quarterback position, we need to draft Tony's replacement sometime. I don't want to see us do what we did when Aikman left, where we had nobody to choose from, and we went through scrub after scrub after scrub until we finally got to Romo, and that took us however long, 5-6 years to get there. I don't want to see us do that again in case Romo's back doesn't hold out or whenever he finally decides to retire or he's cut or whatever ends up happening. So it is hard to pass on a guy like Garoppolo there. because I see a little bit of Tony Romo in him. Obviously, there's the Eastern Illinois connection. The other guy, the Landry, the receiver out of LSU, kind of another guy who in this round, in this pick, it could be a guy to pick to give us another option at wide receiver. But obviously, like I said, I went with need and rating, and it all kind of fit with the defensive end out of Boise State to give us another guy on the defensive line. Fourth round, and this was the last pick that I did for this one. I had a couple of defensive tackles there. Anthony Johnson from LSU, Justin Ellis. Can't remember the school he comes from. He's a smaller school guy, though. Michael Sam, controversial defensive end from Missouri. Shouldn't really be controversial because we're just talking football here, but obviously it's going to be. Then I had a couple quarterbacks here too. McCarron from Alabama, Aaron Murray out of Georgia. This is where I decided that I'm going to pull the trigger on a quarterback, and I went with A.J. McCarron. I actually kind of had a little debate with myself on which guy to choose here with Murray and McCarron. Ultimately, I kind of went with the college experience, the experience of stacking up wins, big school, big name, big stage, and that's why I went with McCarron, being with Alabama. He's won the multiple titles, big stage with the SEC, been a winner there under Nick Saban, dealt with a pro system, just all those things. It kind of felt like this guy could be a really good backup for Tony, be a good understudy, and could potentially step up, Obviously, with the quarterback, you never really know. And Murray was another guy. He was a tempting guy because obviously he's also been with the SEC. He's been on the big stage. I just kind of went a little bit more with the winning pedigree with McCarron. So that was it. That's my 4 rounds. Again, just to recap: Aaron Donald, defensive tackle out of Pittsburgh; Xavier Su'a-Filo, guard out of UCLA; DeMarcus Lawrence, defensive end out of Boise State; and then McCarron, quarterback out of Alabama. So like I say, I'll probably do this as my videos go on. I'll come in through the draft. I'll probably end up getting to the full 7 rounds by the time the draft comes around. And, kind of let me know what you think in the comments. What do you think of my draft? Run the simulator yourself. Let me know kind of what you pulled out of there, kind of what made you decide what you decided. It's on fanspeak.com, I believe. I'm going to put the link down in the info section so you can get there. And I think that's going to do it for this week. Yeah, so leave a comment down there. Kind of let me know what you think of the concept of this video. Kind of what you think about the idea of doing some type of a Google Hangout type of thing. I've seen them broadcast on YouTube before. So, we could have people come in, leave comments, ask questions, ask our opinions on things as we're doing the Hangout. Kind of give me some ideas of what you'd like to see the Hangout be about. My kind of ideas are, talking about the upcoming picks in the draft, kind of what we think about that. Maybe some free agency news, who we've picked up, who we've let go. And then as we go on through the season, as we get towards the season, obviously different topics can come up. So kind of let me know what you think about that. Let me know if you'd like to be involved in the Hangout at all. Maybe be one of the people that is on there with me. I'm up for anybody. We're all a family as Cowboy fans. My only precursor with that would be I want these Hangouts to be kind of a respectful debate and discussion. I don't want to reduce into name calling or going off on people and any of that kind of stuff, which unfortunately has happened in some of the forums. I'd rather have these be kind of just a legitimate discussion on what we think the team should or shouldn't do, or what we think about what the team has done. So leave a comment. Let me know kind of what you think about the video, kind of what you think could be better, or what you think I should add. As we get, and then think about with the draft, kind of what guys you might want me to kind of look at or talk about. Like I mentioned before, kind of any under the radar guys in any positions. I'm probably going to go down the regular line. So start with offense at the QB, running back, and kind of go all the way down from there and end at probably the safeties and the defensive backs. So kind of let me know as you think about it, kind of let me know what you think. Comment, feel free to like or subscribe to my channel so you can see when I do the next ones. And just let me know what you think. and I will see you guys at the next go around. So go Cowboys and have a good one.